Welcome back. Resilience, Part 2. Cultivating Wholeness and Community in a Fragmented World. I want to start Part 2 with a quote from The Courage to Teach from Parker Palmer, where he says, "Small wonder, then, that teaching tugs at the heart, opens the heart, even breaks the heart. And the more one loves teaching, the more heartbreaking it can be. The courage to teach is the courage to keep one's heart open in those very moments when the heart is asked to hold more than it is able." Resiliency is not just about students. Within education, there is an increasing recognition that the nature of teaching and learning and the context in which this takes place demands what we might call everyday resilience. That the capacity to be resilient is an important factor in teaching and teacher effectiveness over time, and that resiliency can be developed. Resilience is defined as the human capacity to face, overcome, and ultimately be strengthened by life's adversities and challenges. This is not something some people have and some people do not. Resiliency is learnable and teachable. This won't be a surprise to educators, but teaching is one of the most stressful jobs in the U.S., according to numerous studies and surveys. Large class sizes, limited resources, unstable school administrations, long hours, escalating job demands, and students with varying and complex needs can all contribute to teacher stress. A 2017 American Federation of Teachers survey of more than 5,000 educators found that 61% described their jobs as often or always stressful. Only 1% reported never feeling stressed. High stress can lead teachers to leave the profession, call in sick frequently, be irritable in the classroom, and generally experience low morale, according to the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. And all these factors can negatively affect student behavior and learning, according to the report. Stress over time can lead to compassion fatigue. It's also sometimes called vicarious traumatization or secondary trauma. The emotional residue or strain of exposure to working with those suffering from the consequences of traumatic events. Compassion fatigue can occur due to exposure on one case or can be due to a cumulative level of trauma over time. Here are some of the systems of compassion fatigue and burnout. In the cognitive domain, lower concentration, more apathy, rigidity, disorientation, preoccupation with trauma. In the emotional domain, powerlessness, high anxiety, easily angered, numbness, fear, sadness, depression, a depleted sense of blunted or enhanced affect, experience trouble sleeping. In the behavioral domain, irritable, sometimes withdrawal, moody, appetite changes, becoming hyper-vigilant and isolating. In the spiritual domain, questioning life's meaning, a sense of pervasive hopelessness, a loss of purpose. And in the somatic domain, rapid heartbeat, breathing difficulties, dizziness, impaired immune systems, headaches, all signs of compassion fatigue and burnout. Let's take a deep breath at this time. The governor, as of yesterday, just closed New Jersey's schools for the remainder of the school year due to COVID-19. In our first book, Unwritten, The Story of a Living System, Dr. Lori Desautels and I wrote extensively about the difference between schooling and education. The idea that you can measure educational success by the month or by months of learning is one of the distortions that viewing education as a machine produces in many minds. There is already talk about the loss of education and the difficulty of catching everyone up. So far, it has been one marking period. Also, do pause to remember that even as our 3 and 4-year-olds enter school, they all begin at very different places. This view of schooling as machine has produced the current test and measure system that currently drives much of what we do in our schools. It has produced endless testing and the notion that teachers can be judged and even evaluated by mathematical models or the movement of test scores. You can only believe this vision of teaching and learning if you believe that education is merely filling up students month by month, year by year, with something called educational stuff. It is a very shallow view of how we educate our young. Yes, online instruction is imperfect. Yes, disadvantaged students become even more disadvantaged. And yes, no matter how resilient, students will need to make up the work and learn some new skills. But millions of students are continuing to learn, to continue to kindle their own fire, and because teachers are persevering, learning does continue. We will work with those children and youth that have fallen behind, just as we always have. We will reconnect and double our efforts whenever we return to face-to-face learning. It is connection and relationship that will get kids past this event, not frantic academic assignments. The resiliency science is quite clear, and it dates back to 1943 with Maslow's hierarchy of human needs. If you look at the chart in front of you, you can kind of see that resiliency fundamentally relies on relationships, connections and attachment, mastery and competence, self-efficacy and autonomy, generosity and altruism. All start with the attachment piece, belongingness, significance, social competence, connection, relating, relationships, social competence, and attachment all matter while we teach. The resilient teacher. The 4 domains of teacher resiliency fall into the professional dimension, the social dimension, the motivational dimension, and the emotional dimension. I want to highlight a few things under each dimension. First, the professional dimension. In this dimension, you're going to see teachers that are committed to teaching every student and connecting with all. These teachers have effective teaching skills but continue to grow their craft throughout their career. Their effective teaching skills are organized, prepared, and they're very collaborative. They share what they learn. In the professional dimension, they are also flexible and adaptive, and above all, reflective. They reflect on their teaching, they reflect on their students. In the social domain, these teachers continually work to build supportive structures. They treat others, including students, with high degrees of dignity and respect, and they seek help when needed. The motivational domain talks about teachers' persistence. They like challenges and they believe all children can learn. They have a positive attitude and are optimistic and they set realistic goals for themselves and others. And the emotional domain. They don't take things personally. They have an enormous sense of humor. They manage their emotions well, and they care for their own well-being and bounce back easily. Resiliency is a key skill for all teachers. In Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula, as well as other parts of the world, just meters below ground lie cenotes. Cenotes are water holes formed millions of years ago. These natural springs, filled by underground rivers, have been a resource for people for thousands of years. The ancient Mayans built villages around these pools and believed them to be a portal to speak with the gods. Cenote means sacred well. They still exist today, and when you float in a cenote, you feel that anything is possible. The cenote offers us beautiful metaphor for resiliency. Within you and outside of you is a wellspring of life-giving energy that you can access and cultivate. Resiliency is within us. We want to cultivate skills, attitudes, and practices that keep us in the comfort zone of this diagram. We want to be able to emotionally self-regulate and self-soothe during stressful times as a teacher and a parent or a partner. That ability to regulate is critical to staying and teaching for long periods of time and keeping and building our resiliency. If the ocean can calm itself, so can you. We are both salt water mixed with air. Cultivating mindful responding, a critical skill for building resiliency as a teacher. As we cultivate mindful responding, we practice setting an intention. Setting an intention gives us the opportunity to declare how we want to be in a situation. And ultimately, that is all we can truly control. How you show up, how you experience something, and how you frame an experience. We want to be able to create a mindful pause so that we can choose our response as we teach our students. I want to introduce you to a term called Dispassionate Compassion. It involves some skills. The first is know what is yours to do. Separate what you wish you could do from what you know you can do. You may feel that you are not doing enough, a sure way of developing stress and feeling overwhelmed. While you may not be able to prevent trauma or remove suffering from children, you can do your job to the best of your ability with love and compassion for both the students and yourself. Focus on the task at hand and be fully present for your students. You might begin today by setting an intention such as, today my intention is to do my part in fostering a safe environment for my students. And once your intention is set, number 2, let go of the result. This is not to say that you stop caring about the efficacy of your teaching, connecting with students, or community building. It is to say that you can practice being less attached to exactly how you think things should look. When we loosen the grip of our ideas about the way things should be, we are much more open to new ideas and new ways of looking at things. Acknowledge the brain's desire for control with humor and compassion, and you create more space to find creative solutions. Build teacher humor. A great way to create resiliency. This is one of my favorites. I'll read the caption. The class was quietly doing its lesson when Russell, suffering from problems at home, prepared to employ an attention-getting device. Another favorite. Based on all the head tilts, maybe I better explain this again. Do share funny comics and some humor with your colleagues. Certainly helps lift the burden of stress in hard times. I'm going to review 11 habits that build resilience from the book by Elena Aguilar, Cultivating Emotional Resilience in Educators. I'm going to go through the 11 habits that she talks about in her book. First, know yourself. When you are clear about your values, you align your skills, time, and energy to your purpose, and purposefulness is a key trait in building resiliency. Taking the time to reflect on and get clear about your values, your preferences, your skills and aptitudes, and your identity can help you develop a strong sense of purpose. This makes you more likely to respond to difficult situations in ways that are consistent with that purpose. Number 2, understand emotions. We are feeling creatures who think. Teachers deal with feelings and emotions all day long. Emotions are extremely contagious, and we can learn to use them in understanding ourselves, our students, and our behavioral choices. Understanding, accepting, and reflecting on your own emotions is a key to great teaching and building resilience. Remember, the brain is built from the bottom to the top and from the inside out. Emotion has a substantial influence on the cognitive processes in humans, including our perception, attention, learning, memory, reasoning, and problem solving. Emotion has particularly strong influence on attention, especially modulating the selectivity of attention, as well as motivating action and behavior. This attentional and executive control is intimately linked to the learning process. Number 3, tell yourself empowering stories. We craft a short story every time we interpret an event. Become aware of the stories you tell yourself. Become aware and reflective of the background stories that play all day long in your head. Being aware of your thoughts and examining your core beliefs can help a great deal in creating resiliency. Here is the bottom line. If you want to shift the way you feel, you can begin and must shift the way you think. Optimism lives within the stories you tell yourself, and it can be learned and strengthened. Realistic optimists believe they can make a difference. It provides the energy to maintain a positive outlook in the face of adversity without denying the constraints posed by reality. Habit number 4, be here now. Consider cultivating mindfulness. Mindfulness allows you to create a pause button. It allows you to intentionally choose your response. You have around 65,000 thoughts a day. Mindfulness allows you to choose the ones you want to act on. As teachers, you literally make thousands of choices a day, and a practice of mindfulness allows you to pause and choose your best response. Number 5, take care of yourself. To become more resilient, we need to build new neural pathways. Movement is the path to creating new neural pathways. Other suggestions: spend some time outdoors, sit near water, spend some time in the sun, and learn to stay no. Strive for balance. Number 6, focus on the bright spots. Our brains have a built-in negative bias. They are like Velcro for negative events and Teflon for good events. The brain perceives negative stimuli faster and more intensely than positive stimuli. Within a tenth of a second, we can store negative stimuli in our memories. Big portions of our brain and neurosystem activate in response to perceived threat, such as a grumpy high school junior, a curt email from a parent, or a critical comment by a supervisor. In contrast, positive experiences are harder for us to spot and must be focused on for about 12 seconds before they stick in our memories. We need to be intentional about our focus on the positive. Number 7, cultivate compassion. Let us not underestimate how hard it is to be compassionate. Compassion is hard because it requires the inner disposition to go with others to places where they are weak, vulnerable, lonely, and broken. But this is not our spontaneous response to suffering. What we desire most is to do away with suffering by fleeing from it or finding a quick cure for it, according to Henry Nouwen. Compassion is how you respond in the face of someone's suffering. Compassion is empathy in action. It is a verb. Habit number 8. Build community. We are social beings and we each need each other to strive. Matthew Lieberman, a social neuroscientist, states social connection is our primary need and our human superpower. Teachers grow in strong communities and children thrive in community. Trust is the foundation of building healthy community. All people thrive in an environment of belonging, mastery, independence, and generosity. Habit number 9. Be a learner. I love the saying, "Who dares to teach must never cease to learn." Resilient people are curious. All learning is driven by questions we ask and pursue. Resilient teachers ask, "What can I learn from that?" Great teachers are great learners. Habit 10. Play and create. One tool for building resilience that is easy to overlook is the habit of play. A large cadre of scientists have studied play, including neuroscientists, developmental biologists, psychologists, and social scientists. Play shapes all mammals' brains. Play relieves stress. It triggers the release of endorphins, the body's natural feel-good chemicals. Play improves relationships. Sharing fun can foster empathy, compassion, trust, and intimacy with others. Play improves brain function. Play boosts creativity and keeps us feeling more energetic. The late anthropologist Angel Aryan states that in many traditional cultures, when an ill person went to see a healer, the healer would ask 4 questions. When did you stop singing? When did you stop dancing? When did you stop telling your story? And when did you stop sitting in silence? She calls singing, dancing, telling your story, and sitting in silence the healing salves. Play, art, and creativity are not supplemental extras. They are keys to thriving. Habit 11. Practice gratitude and kindness. Gratitude is like a flashlight. It lights up what is already there. You don't necessarily have anything more or different, but suddenly you can actually see what it is. And because you can see, you can no longer take it for granted. Gratitude is such a powerful emotion, one that can make your life better in so many ways. A research study on gratitude found there were a multitude of benefits from keeping a gratitude journal. A simple notebook where you write down daily what you are grateful for increases resiliency. Lastly, practice kindness. A favorite proverb goes like this: if you want happiness for 1 hour, take a nap. If you want happiness for 1 day, go fishing. If you want happiness for 1 month, get married. If you want happiness for 1 year, inherit a fortune. If you want happiness for a lifetime, be kind to others. Being grateful and kind increase our resilience, improves our mood, and centers us in something other than ourselves. A favorite quote by Bell Hooks: education is always a vocation rooted in hopefulness. We as teachers will be dealing and are dealing with a tremendous amount of stress now due to the closing of our schools. I do want to share with you, though, a term called post-traumatic growth. Post-traumatic growth has been defined as the experience of positive change resulting from the struggle with major life crises. The concept is, of course, ancient and has been prevalent in the literature, philosophy, and religion of almost all cultures. It is important to note that we're not talking about the traumatic event itself, but how the event can become a catalyst for positive change. Post-traumatic growth is the process after the traumatic event and is something we can begin to think about in our current situation. There are 5 domains of post-traumatic growth, and they include an increased sense of personal strength, closer relationships with others, a greater appreciation for life, new possibilities, and deepening of our spiritual life. Thank you for what you're doing to support the children that you are working with at this time. We certainly are in a very stressful period of time. Do feel free to contact me, shoot me an email, let me know of what you think of these presentations. Thank you for what you're doing, and I look forward to seeing you face to face in the not too distant future.